Hello, I am Brett Ratner, the director of this major motion picture.
And I'm Ted Talley, the screenwriter of this motion picture, and thanks for watching our DVD.
I got a call from my agent who said Stacey Snider would like to send me over a script, and Stacey called me directly. Stacey's the chairman of Universal, for those of you who don't know. And it said Red Dragon on it. I said, Red Dragon, is this, the prequel to Silence of the Lambs? I was familiar with the book, but hadn't read it. And I said, first I was very insecure, and I was like, well, what am I, like the go-to guy on the sequels? Why is she sending this to me? Because no one can mess this one up, And then I saw Ted's name on it. I said, wait a second, this is the guy who wrote Silence of the Lambs, but didn't write Hannibal, so this must be special. Why are they sending this to me? I'm not a dark guy. I don't make dark movies. I do comedies.
Well, I think they sent it to you because you're cheap.
Exactly. And so I read it, and I was completely blown away. Not to blow any smoke up anybody's butt in my presence, but the truth is, the script was amazing. And I called up Stacey. I said, I want to do this. And she goes, okay, well, now you got to meet Dino De Laurentiis. And I said, Dino De Laurentiis? A Fellini fame?
Scary thought.
So I went to his house, and first thing he says to me is, why do they like you? Who are you? I never heard of you. What is Family Man, Rush Hour? I don't know these movies. I said, Dino, I'm a talented guy. Trust me. And thank God Ted had seen Family Man and Rush Hour, and his kids, or someone in his family, was a fan.
No, I mean, Brett might not have been an obvious choice,
Yeah.
but Brett is an incredibly talented director, and clearly was ready to try something new that he had never done before. And is a great fan of Hitchcock and of thrillers, and brings a tremendous energy and confidence to his work.
And I was such a big fan of Silence of the Lambs. You know what I was excited about? Most people were like, weren't you scared? Weren't you scared? Of
Following in those footsteps.
Of following in the footsteps. First of all, I had three brilliant directors, who, Michael Mann and Jonathan Demme and Ridley Scott, who made 3 movies in the exact same genre, but completely different. And I was excited about it because by watching those films, I knew what not to do, or what I didn't want to do. I was able to decide on the type of movie that I wanted to make. And it helped me choose the tone of the movie. And I realized that I wanted to make a movie more like Silence of the Lambs, more Hitchcock-inspired, a movie that scared you by what you didn't see more than what you did see.
I've read somewhere that you said the most important single decision you make in directing a movie is tone.
Absolutely, because it's the direction of the film. It helps you with every choice that you make, as far as the wardrobe, the production design, the music, and the tone to me is really everything. And Dante calls it the language of the film.
To integrate, for instance, in what we're seeing now, Christy Zia's set design with this sort of dark, rich color in Dante's cinematography, the choices even of the props. The integration of all of that, the wardrobe, is sort of overlooked, I think, by people, and it should be something that doesn't call attention to itself. But when all of those elements are integrated, you look at this moment here. You get a much more powerful movie if nothing sticks out, if everything is consistent in tone.
Special Agent Graham, was an unexpected pleasure.
I'm sorry to bother you again.
And if you can see on the left-hand side over there, a little detail, I found this book of Sigmund Freud's office was it Vienna?
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of modeled Hannibal's office and all the tchotchkes, the details.
Our whole profile's
Fun picking some of these props.
Yeah.
I mean, if you were going to design the office of Hannibal Lecter, MD, what kinds of things are on his desk? What kinds of things are on his bookshelves? What curios does he collect? And the script suggested some of them. But a great designer like Christy Zia has a field day with this kind of opportunity.
And I was very lucky. I mean, once I got the movie officially, and I just started going after the people who created Silence. I went after Christy, who I'd worked with before on Family Man, so I did have a prior relationship. I felt like I was born to make this movie because I'd worked with all these. Ironically, I worked with Dante before, even though he had done Manhunter. And I asked him, I said, I'm going to send you the script, but I know you're probably not going to want to do it because you've done it before. And Dante read the script and called me and says, I want to do this. I said, come on, Dante, you don't want to do this movie. You've done it before. He goes, Brett, Monet painted the cathedral 13 times. What's the difference? He goes, and this is a totally different movie. And I also wanted to help myself with some of the credibility, get some Academy Award winning or nominated people aside from Ted who can be part of this. And really, the script, to me, honestly, I'm not just saying this because Ted is here, but the script is everything. The script allowed me to get the crew that I wanted because of the material, and especially the actors. I basically went after all the actors that everybody said I couldn't get. And the first actor that I had to get was Anthony Hopkins, and I didn't know this. I thought when I was signing on to a Ted Talley script with Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter. But Dino, after he says, okay, you got the job, but said to me, okay, now you go to New York and convince Anthony Hopkins to do the movie. I said,
well, I guess after having already played the part twice, Tony needed a little bit of coaxing to do it a third time. He wanted to be convinced that he could find something new and different in this.
Now I'm sorry to think that I might no longer.
I went to New York with Dino, and I was very nervous. I mean, this is Anthony Hopkins, but the thing that I did know and what I was confident about was the type of movie I wanted to make. Like I said, I went in there knowing the tone of the movie, the way my approach to the movie, how I wanted to not show any of the gore. I didn't want to make a horror film. I wanted to make a film that was psychological, that was emotional, that was smart, and that was what was on the page. And the only scene that Tony had a concern with, which is when I sat with him, was this scene right here.
Yes, Tony was concerned that as originally written, his attack on Graham here was too graphic.
And by the way, it's an interpretation really, because 10 directors would direct the scene 10 different ways and show various degrees of the violence. It's about showing the details of the guts falling out of his stomach, or the blood, or how much blood do you want to show. And I chose to play it mostly on their faces. If you see, once the attack happens, here's my little homage to silence. You see the
yes, you see the bugs.
You like that? And so I chose to play this scene, the violence part of the scene, on their faces. I love this book. This is an original. My prop guy Brad found this original book from France, the Leroux, because when I read it, I had no idea what the hell it was. I don't know anything about cooking.
It's the Bible of cookbooks.
It's the Bible of cookbooks, and I learned that quickly. And he found this real old French cookbook, and there was a lot of dialogue about how do we sell his moment, and it's really just a subliminal thing.
Right.
It wasn't really supposed to be so pointed, where it was like, oh, sweetbreads. And I thought sweetbreads was brains, but it's not. It's actually thymus. I learned so much about anatomy on
Well,
this
if you work on a Lecter movie, you learn a lot about cooking.
And I thought Edward was fantastic in this scene.
Tremendous intensity of performances in this movie.
Yeah.
And really a dream cast, as Brad already said. I mean, if you could have anybody in the world for these parts and be lucky enough to get them, it's pretty much what happened to us.
And really thanks to great actors want to play, good characters. They want to play great characters. And all of these characters, down to Freddie Lowndes, down to, the smaller roles, were just written so well. And were interesting and dynamic, and these actors were interested in playing this, because to convince these actors to do a third in the series, all that third in the series went out the window when they read the script.
Well, certainly once they started working.
Yeah.
And there's our cold opening.
That's the cold opening. And I'm very proud of this title sequence because it was actually done like 2 days before we had a locked picture. My editor, Mark Helfrich, actually was the brainchild behind this because...
You reshot the journal here in a really interesting way. Initially, this was done in a much more straightforward way.
Yeah. With
the images very flat against the screen.
Yeah, it was shot. A lot of times, Mark is kind of... Everybody on my team, from my AD to my production designer, are all filmmakers. Mark is a filmmaker in his own right, and he just understands the visuals and storytelling.
I love how
But this was all written.
Yes, this was written.
This was all written.
But the way that the camera roams over these pages, and when we go in very, very close, and when it gets grainy, and the camera movement left to right and up and down is all not scripted, of course.
So this is stuff that I don't really have the patience for. So Mark kind of took this book, who he's fascinated by, and I think has a copy of it in his closet at home, and just knew every page, every frame, and went with Dante and just literally just shot.
This is a wonderful opportunity, actually, this kind of title sequence. It's sort of old-fashioned in a way, but it's a wonderful opportunity for a screenwriter to get a lot of information in quickly, to cover a lot of ground between the arrest of Lecter and where we are when the movie's going to start. You're covering a period of several years, and you're doing that without any dialogue, just by these images. and it's very useful shorthand.
And Danny did the same thing that Ted did with the script in this sequence, that Mark did with the visuals in this sequence. Danny did the same thing with the music. I think the music here is so fantastic, and it's very much like a Bernard Herrmann score, which I knew was a big inspiration for Danny. Danny's a big fan of Bernard Herrmann, and I knew this was his opportunity, because he's done darker scores, but they kind of had kind of a lightness to it, or a comedic darkness to it. So Danny did something here that kind of made people's skin crawl in the theater, like you're in for it. If you're gonna sit through the rest of this movie, you're gonna experience some stuff. And shit's gonna go down.
Right.
So that sequence, that 2 minutes of the movie, which could have been a very boring kind of dull sequence.
I had a long conversation with Christy Zia about that, actually. It was wonderful. She called me up and said, this book of Dohraggin, what does it look like? What's in it? What does the handwriting look like? What kind of photograph? And we had a long conversation, which for a screenwriter, you don't often get a call from the production designer to talk about a specific prop. It was a wonderful opportunity to be part of the design of the movie in that little section.
You've got a beautiful setup here, bro.
This was actually in the Keys, in the Florida Keys.
You know why I'm here?
Was it Marathon?
Yeah, I can guess.
Well, the location's meant to be Marathon,
Meant to be
Florida.
Marathon, Florida. And what I tried to do, Dino, of course, wanted us to shoot in North Carolina because he had studios there and had a house on the beach there, and or Malibu because it's close to his house in Beverly Hills. But the truth is, I wanted to stay true. And when I said I chose the tone, I really chose the tone of the book, going back to the book.
Well, everybody here was honoring the book.
Yeah, we really gave a lot of respect to Thomas's book.
Tom Harris is a wonderful writer, and everyone, when you're doing an adaptation like this, it's a great resource to everybody to be able to pick up the book, which can go into far more detail than the screenplay ever can. It's a help to the production design. It's a help to the actors who can go back and find out details of motivation. It's just helpful to everybody to have that Bible to refer to.
So when it said Marathon, Florida, I tried to stay true to that and go to actually, to the location in Marathon, Florida. So it just felt like it. So tonally, and even the location, like Grandma's house, in the same description of the rural area, where it was, and the type of house it was, that it was kind of, it was an old age home once, which is just really backstory. But Christy incorporated that into the design. So I was so happy that Christy and Ted, really stayed true to the tone of the book visually as well when it described the locations. And this was so much fun being down here, by the way. I mean, it was like the end of the shoot, and we were just down there on the beach. And this was probably the hardest scene I probably shot with these two guys. All the scenes.
In what way?
Well,
because it's exposition.
A lot of exposition. Anything with exposition.
It's tough.
It's tough
to make it sound like real conversation.
Yeah. And but honestly, there's not a line in this movie that I'm not proud of. I mean, I can't say that there's a line.
Well, it was a tight script.
Yeah.
We did cut a few lines and we cut a few parts of scenes, but Brett and I actually worked quite a bit over the script before the production started, and we had it pretty tight, and the shooting stayed quite faithful to the script.
And the thing, every scene, I think, I have to say, was hard for me because I'm used to scenes with not much dialogue in them.
Right. And I unfortunately am a very talky screenwriter.
Yeah.
So it was a clash of cultures.
Coming from being a playwright, I guess.
I guess so.
There's a lot of dialogue in this movie, I can tell you, and it was not single spaced. The script.
Yes, no, it's a long script. And I kept saying, well, make them talk faster.
Ted's advice
to me
was,
don't cut anything, just make them talk faster.
Yeah, Ted's advice to me was, Brett, at the end of when you're happy, ask the actors to do one take where they talk double speed, and I did that.
Right.
And probably that's all the takes that Mark ended up using in the edit. Is Mark kept calling me and saying, this movie will be 4 hours long if you do not get them to speak faster.
Well, the thing you run into as a screenwriter, even with the best actors, you try to pace a scene and to fit within an act structure and fit within the entire screenplay. But then actors want to take very long dramatic pauses. and actors want to sort of look down and then look up and then look across the room and then look back at each other and finally say the line.
A lot of pausing goes on.
And that's what you're up against too when you're trying to time out the length of a scene or the length of an act.
I want to say something also about these actors. I mean, I literally thought once I started getting, once I got Edward Norton, then I used Edward to get, another actor. Then once I got Ray Fiennes, and I used, I got Emily Watson. I used Ray Fiennes.
You parlayed them into each other.
I kind of, said Philip Seymour Hoffman. I'm getting Mary Louise Parker. I knew each one who they were a fan of, and I kind of used them all against each other to get them all in the movie. And I literally thought that I was going to be able to walk onto the set, and it would be the easiest movie I ever made, because I had these brilliant actors. I could just say action, and they could just. But
I read one review, an article or something about this movie that said this is the most distinguished cast that's been assembled in any movie in the last 20 years.
Wow. But the truth is, it was probably the hardest movie I'd ever made, because the smarter the actor, the more experience they have, the more. It's a myth about these great actors don't need direction. They want direction more than any other actor.
Well, they want direction, but of course they have ideas of their own, because in the end, it's up to them. In the end, they're the one whose face is filling that whole screen, and who has to absolutely believe what they're doing.
Absolutely.
Or they can't convince an audience of it.
But they wanted to. What I'm trying to say is there was a lot of dialogue going on. I mean, a lot of intellectual discussions, and each one of these actors are not only smart actors, but they're smart people. They're highly intelligent. They're all smarter than myself. And
a lot of them have also directed or even written as well.
Yeah, and they all had an opinion. And my job, really, I felt like it was my job to save the script.
Thank you.
This was a script that worked to me. It worked. We had a table reading of it. It was fantastic, and Ted was whispering in my ear, "Don't let these actors do this. Don't let these actors do this." And he was right. The truth is, the words work, the scenes work, the story worked, which is why I was able to concentrate on my storytelling. My craft as a storyteller. And if I had these great actors who were going to say the words that were on the page, then I could work on telling the story, moving the camera, picking the lenses, a lot of the other aspects, which I don't really get time to focus on when I'm doing a movie like Rush Hour, which has 10,000 times more shots.
The kind of scene that we're watching right now with Edward Norton investigating the home where the family was murdered, is this a harder scene to do than other kinds of scenes? There's no dialogue here. Mm-hmm. So the storytelling is purely visual. Is that harder for you or easier for you?
I think it's easier for me. When there's a lot of dialogue, I'm used to Jackie and Chris, who, God bless them, they're so much fun to work with, but they do like 2 or 3 words at a time, and then I cut, and then I pick it up, or like one sentence.
Right.
These actors can do like 5 pages without stopping, so I have to remember any notes that I want. I have to remember, it's a huge amount of thinking. I mean, I was physically exhausted making a movie like Rush Hour at the end of every day. In this movie, I was mentally exhausted, which is more exhausting. And these actors demand my attention, my focus, and they want to have dialogue sometimes after every take about, okay, what they did.
Why would I say that?
Why would they do that?
Right.
Why? It's always why. Why is the big question. And sometimes I would have to say, guys, I really don't know. Can you just say what's on the page? Because I think it's going to sound good if what you say is on the page. And I allowed the actors to experiment with stuff, but the truth is, I always got them to do it exactly on the page. And 97% of the stuff that's in the movie was on the page, and maybe even more. There was little moments like this added line here, that Edward added about the way the kids were shot and stuff,
which indicated they might use a silencer. Right?
Which indicated they might use a silencer.
It's probably in the book.
It's probably I think I mean, Edward does a lot of research and has a photographic. Is it graphic or genetic? Photographic memory, and kind of memorizes not only his lines but everybody else's lines. So he's very well prepared and really puts a lot of thought, like all the actors really, into what he's saying. Every moment,
it's very nuance. Striking with Edward, as with other great actors, by how much they can achieve while appearing to do little.
Yeah,
it's very internalized.
Yeah.
I think Edward is very concerned to not have a single false moment, and I respect that integrity in him.
It's funny, all that blood and the way the mirrors broke in, and it's like we had these experts from the FBI on the set, like blood splat experts,
Splatter experts,
and they would say, okay, well the blood, they would ask me, okay, which way was the guy shot? I go, okay, he was shot in this direction, and then like the blood splatters would go, well, then the blood should go in this direction, and then the prop guy would just take the paint and just throw it on the wall and goes, okay, that looks good.
Yeah, you had spatter wranglers.
Spatter wranglers. And the way this glass was broke, like a punch, how a punch...
What I just wanted to say that here's a moment where Edward is speaking to himself, to the killer in effect, but he's speaking out loud. He's an actor alone on the set, speaking out loud, voicing his thought out loud. That's something that some actors will... I've actually had actors refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Because they think it's so stagey and theatrical and false, and they won't do it.
Yeah.
In this case, it was very important because I don't really know how to show as a screenwriter exactly the sequence of his thinking through this scene unless the actor voices his thoughts out loud. And I think Edward is particularly good in this scene. It's a very, very difficult kind of scene for an actor to play. He's by himself. He has nobody else to bounce ideas off of. He has to show a mental process, and he has to show a leap of imagination. And it's very hard to pull off this kind of, with rising excitement, meanwhile. And I'm amazed by him in this scene. I think it's a very, very hard thing to pull off.
By the way, this scene is an example of a scene that my editor, Mark, was very particular about, collaborating with me and telling me, Brett, how are you going to pull this off? And I said, I don't know, I'm just going to shoot it. And he literally had me bring Edward to the edit room and took a video camera and kind of shot the scene for me, basically, before.
Showing the way it might intercut.
The way it might intercut, because there's devices in here, which is, the flashes, and you've seen it almost in, in hundreds of films. And I didn't want it to be false. And he said, well, I have an idea of how to do this. And he actually shot the scene for me before I actually shot the scene. And it was a great reference. And, we adjusted little things and tweaked little things. But this is all protecting the cliche.
Well, but you can see the power that the editing brings to a sequence like this. That it startles you and it moves the story forward in a way that the story is always a leap or two ahead of the audience and pulling them along behind it. And that's a function of great editing.
Which is important in a movie like this, because the minute the audience is ahead of you,
right.
you're in trouble. They're sleeping.
It's the same thing that on Silence of the Lambs, I used to worry that we were cutting so many little tiny beats that the audience would be confused. And Jonathan Demme said better if they're confused, for 5 minutes than bored for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And this film is very, very tightly edited.
Gentlemen, ladies, this is what the subject's teeth look like. The impressions came from bite marks on Mrs. Leeds. This degree of crookedness...
Here we,
the groove in this central incisor
where was this?
makes his bite
This was shot in
signature
L.A.
unique.
Yeah, this is shot in L.A. in a building that the city gave us, which is like a government building. And
Here's Bill Duke.
Bill Duke,
a great
one of my
actor,
favorite actors.
A great actor. Again, an example of, I think, of the meticulousness that Brett brings to casting. These wonderful, wonderful actors who could be, the stars of their own movies, who are playing supporting parts in this.
I literally called him and begged him to be in the movie. I love actors. I love great actors, and I spend as much time on the smaller roles as I do on the bigger roles. Really, I think it's very important because an actor who has one line can take you out of a movie and just hurt it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, again, it goes back to the whole question of tone, and a single wrong note will make an audience self-conscious and pull them out of the movie.
And this film is really the opposite of any of the films I've ever done. Family Man, which had dramatic moments, was still a comedy, so you can go farther with the realism. But this, especially when it's dealing with the FBI and forensics and scientific,
it has to be very grounded in reality.
Yeah, very grounded.
In order for the audience to accept the more extravagant parts of the movie, the more baroque characters in the movie, like Dohraggin and Lecter, scenes like this have to be very, very credibly rooted in police reality, in procedural reality.
God. Would you give that up?
The other thing also is the when we're talking about the tone, the choice, and I think I was thinking about it and why I chose not to really show, not only because of silence, because I think even silence might have shown more violence than in this film, really, because the only scene we have is the biting of the lips.
Well, we certainly tried to hold it down.
But I think the reason was because when I went to the FBI at Quantico and started looking at all these visuals of serial killers' work, it was so disturbing to me. It's like, it really bothered me. I said, why do I want to do this to audiences? It's just going to completely turn them off.
Well, you don't. I think with this movie, as with Silence, what you really want to do is a detective story.
Yeah.
You really want to do a psychological thriller, a detective story. You're not trying to make a horror movie at all, though sometimes these are referred to as if they're horror movies. I've never quite understood that. I mean, to me, these are thrillers, detective movies.
In this scene, this is where Harvey's Jewishness really comes out. You're the light of my life. It sounds like my grandmother. I love that line.
I'm sorry, I cannot answer any more questions.
Here's Philip Seymour Hoffman, a great amazing. Who
he
actually should not have been lucky enough to get for a small part.
Yeah, he actually wanted to play Dohraggin, and I wanted Rafe to do it, and had dinner with him, and then called him back a week later. He really wanted the part of Dohraggin, and his schedule wasn't permitting him to do a bigger part anyway.
Right.
And then I called him. I said, you know what? I really think you should do Freddie Lounds. And he said, well, let me read it again, and then call me up. He says, I'll do it.
He probably would have been very good as Dohraggin in a very different way.
It would have been amazing.
I mean, a great actor is a chameleon.
Those pictures of me, you remember? With the tubes hanging out of me.
Forget that prick.
This was a very difficult scene, too. God. Very difficult.
Well, this was a difficult scene because, and this was a scene where Edward had a lot of input as we were revising the script before we shot. Edward said, look, this is a very, very difficult transition for this character to make. Here he's out of the loop. He doesn't want to be involved in this investigation. He's sort of done a favor for his old friend and mentor, Jack Crawford, but he really doesn't want to get deeper into this because of his own psychological and physical scars, because of his commitment to his family. He doesn't want to do this. And now he's got to do the most difficult thing he could possibly have to do, which is to go back and confront Lecter again. And there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of revision and a lot of talk about how we might credibly motivate this transition in the story. And actually Edward was very helpful here with his thoughts.
And I think it works because it's not the cliche of like the guy jumping back.
Get back on the horse.
Get back on the horse and
Right.
Going,
it off.
okay.
Don't do it.
I'm proud of how it turned out, and it was really again Mark's editing of the scene, and
Well, and it's also Harvey's matter-of-fact sort of performance here.
yeah.
It could potentially have been a real glitch in the story, where the audience says, oh, come on, he wouldn't go back to see Lecter again. He's scared to death of Lecter. But I think the actors and Brett were able to sell that.
Everyone asked me about this shot because it's in the end credits that we used the shot from Silence, and that's the shot.
Literally the shot from
the
Silence.
shot from Silence, because when we went back to shoot it, that building wasn't there really. Half of it was gone.
It had been torn down?
Yeah, half of it has been torn down.
Yeah, people are confused as to why there's a mention. And here's Anthony Heald, everybody's favorite slime ball in these movies, and a wonderful man.
Wonderful guy.
actor.
Great actor, and I wanted to make his hair match like it did in Silence, so
Yes.
I put him in a wig.
Writing this stuff was a lot of fun for me because it was revisiting a character that I'd already killed off in the other movie, and someone that the audience loves to hate, and an actor who's just funny to me.
And Chrissy kind of duplicated right here, starting from this cell block.
Zia had to duplicate the cell Lecter's asylum in the cell block, and didn't she actually had to go? She no longer had her original design.
Yeah, she had to get the plans from MGM, which is why MGM's name is on
Not
the
only
movie.
MGM, she had to go to the American Museum of the Moving Image.
Yeah, to get the plans.
Because her plan for Lecter's cell is kind of already part of film history. And she had already donated it or been asked for
And there's
it.
Frankie Faison.
Frankie Faison. Playing Barney again.
That was so nice of him to do this for
I
us.
believe the only actor who's been in all of these
All
movies.
of them, including Manhunter.
He's the only
That's
actor
movie
who's
trivia.
been the only actor who's been in every one of the Hannibal Lecter movies. I didn't realize Frankie was going to be in this movie, or I would have made Barney a bigger part in this movie.
Last minute, I called up Ted. I
We
said,
only got him at the last minute.
Yeah.
And I felt terrible when I knew that Frankie was going to be in this movie because I would have given him 2 or 3 real scenes if I had known it.
Mm-hmm. This was interesting. This is the thing I was most scared of, because this to me was the most powerful part of Silence, these scenes with Tony Hopkins. I mean, it got it.
Well, and you've got to work on this tiny little set.
There's not a lot of options as far as angles, as far as
the body movement of the actors and the angles. It's a very, very difficult thing to shoot multiple scenes.
It's pretty straightforward. Now, you see behind Edward, there's light on the wall. That was Dante. I was very resistant to it because I said, well, this is like underground.
Right.
And you know, I didn't want to make it look just like Silence.
But there's a stairwell over there or something.
There's a stairwell, but also the truth is, like, there is some daylight coming in, but I said, you got to justify it for me. He goes, Brett, there's these little slits on top of
the bars, the gratings.
And the daylight is kind of seeping in. It looks really beautiful.
I like the way you staged Tony Hopkins' re-entrance into the story here. Of course, in the book, this is the first time we meet the character. There has been no preliminary scene, and this is his first meeting. This is the first appearance of Hannibal Lecter in literature or in film, this moment.
And we did a lot of tests also with his wardrobe, because this is actually, I think it's a green jumpsuit, but it photographs blue. I wanted all the elements in here. I wanted to stay true to Silence, as far as the set, the art on the wall, which we couldn't get all of it, but we got most of it back. But it was also before, so we could have had other drawings up.
Right.
You know, all the details here are very, you know, that sink, you know, like I said, the art and the wardrobe.
It was a strange feeling to see this set.
It was like deja vu, kind of.
Deja vu for me. I mean,
it was deja vu for me, and I wasn't even there.
The last time I saw this set had been, 12 years previously, and it was in Pittsburgh.
And now it's actually in a Hollywood museum.
It is?
The whole set.
What Hollywood museum?
Down, isn't it Mark? Isn't it on the Hollywood Museum? Yeah, it's on. We can go down and check it out. We should go see it. They have like pictures from Silence and. This stuff, Tony did a great job here, because when I met with him, he said something great to me. He said, I've done this joke already. And I said, your relationship with Edward's character is much different, with Will Graham than it is with Clarice Starling, because this is the guy that put you away, that captured you. And you can't be your old charming, regular self here.
I mean, it's strange to play a monster that the world has fallen in love with.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges in this movie for Tony and for us was to sort of put the teeth back into this character, so to speak.
It's easy to make this character Baroque because this character's so low.
Tony does incredibly well in this scene.
If you watch the close up here on the big screen, he's literally tearing here. He's so angry. The fire is coming out of his eyes, and there's tears in his eyes. His anger is so intense here. And Edward, I got to be honest, I was a little nervous. I had a lot of discussions with Edward. I said, Edward, let's discuss something. I said, Edward, you're afraid of this guy, correct? He goes, yes, but I won't show it to him. My character would not show it to him. I'm not a novice. I'm not a FBI student, student of the FBI. I have history with this guy. We've done a lot together. I have years of experience in the FBI, and I would not show him fear. But I said, but inside you are fearful, correct? I said, well, then can you at least show that you're hiding fear? He goes, well, how am I going to do that? That's bad. I said,
that's what acting is.
That's what acting is. And he was very resistant to it. He has a very naturalistic way of acting, and he really was very resistant. I was afraid that it wouldn't work. And then I came up with this scene right here.
I've always thought the key to great acting is not just the emotion you show, but the emotion that you show yourself trying to conceal.
And here, this moment, see with the sweat under his armpits, and he loved it. He loved it, and
so it's a way of getting what you waned.
Yeah, visually,
in a sort of compromise with the actor's style.
Just in case the audience felt like he wasn't afraid, because I wanted them to know that he was afraid. And I said, if we had sweat under his arms, and I really got the idea because the line in this scene, which is, "You stink of fear, Will."
Right.
It was, Lecter was saying it, but I don't know. I wasn't sure, and I wasn't secure enough.
Have you noticed that Tony Hopkins never blinks?
Yeah.
When he's playing this character, he has some strange physiological ability to keep himself from blinking, and it's part of what makes this character so hypnotic.
You need to see them living.
When he ever does finally blink in one of these movies, it's a very deliberately chosen moment, and it's almost like somebody clashed cymbals together because it's so unusual.
Big backyards, fenced.
It's also, like Edward Norton, an actor who can accomplish incredible things with stillness. He's hardly moving here, but his intensity is like a laser beam.
If one were nude, say, it would be better to have outdoor privacy for that sort of thing.
You think the yards might be a factor when he selects victims?
Oh, yes. And there will be more of them, of course. Victims. So you'll be wanting lots of these little chinwags, I take
I love that
I
line.
might not have time.
That's these little chin wags I
I
do.
have oodles.
I need your opinion now.
Then here's one. You stink of fear under that cheap lotion. You stink of fear, well, but you're not a coward.
It's a nice shot.
You fear me.
Yeah, this is my editor's favorite shot
this shy
in the movie.
boy.
Mark said
Best
this was his
thing you
favorite
can
shot. And I held on it, which
Don't you
which
Yeah,
worked.
you could have cut away from it, but it's very powerful. It's
Because we are very much alike.
Edward was very good here, and the lighting was great, and it just
We'd be
worked.
like all those other poor dullards.
We lost a great line at the end of this. You remember what it was?
Of our instrument.
No.
But I can help.
After this, he said, "Are you not afraid of anything?"
Oh yes, yes. And Lecter says, I fear being bored,
Yeah,
and you're not as frightening as I thought you'd be." Something to that effect.
right.
I think it's probably true of Lecter. The only thing he actually fears is boredom, because he wants to amuse himself at all times.
Yeah.
You sure you're okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
This was actually at a real hospital for the criminally insane.
I don't know.
This
I don't know, maybe
location
nothing.
here.
It's hard to separate his bullshit.
I think it's outside of Baltimore.
House.
This is a practical location. This was not a set. This is a house.
Oh, this is actually a house.
Yeah.
Right.
All the houses were the hotel rooms were sets, but except for Grandma's house, which is we built the exterior and the interior.
Right.
I was a little upset because I wanted to put like my favorite movies in here, but we can only like get Universal films in there, like Jaws. How did that get in there? I love this. This little.
You did this kind of stuff in Family Man as well.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Doing home videos within a movie.
Yeah.
It must be fun for you as
It
a
is.
director.
It's a lot of fun. I love the kitsch kind of.
And Christy has an unerring eye for this kind of middle-class Americana.
Yeah.
She has a lot of fun with these designs.
And the casting of this is very important. You know,
Yes,
that's
I mean,
the kids and
you
the
don't ever
mom.
really get to know these people. They're already dead before the movie starts, but it's important for them to seem like a family and to be
real.
real and to be someone that we feel like we could have gotten to know and could have cared about if we.
Yeah, and this dialogue was great. I mean, these little lines. And just, you know, I literally read like 300 women for this part because I was like, I want her to be all American, real, likable.
She's
you know?
wonderful.
It's such a small little part, but I couldn't. It was like the last thing I cast.
It's Margaret McIntyre.
Yeah.
Stop it, I'm telling my
Great
mother on you.
actress.
Now I get my kiss, don't I?
You want a kiss?
I want a kiss, the big romantic kind.
And here we had sort of a challenge as we were working over the script and getting ready to make the movie, because we're going here to a second house of murder victims, and you don't want it to be repetitive, and you've got to find a way to make it be quite different and move more quickly. And Mark Helfrich, the editor, had some wonderful ideas for increasing the pace of this, which was a little bit longer. In the script initially, I believe Graham goes into this house and has a few moments in it.
Anything repetitive will never be in the film if Mark's editing it. I can tell you
Right,
that.
exactly. So we eliminated a couple of brief moments of him going into the house because it was too much like the other house he went into, and you try to move ahead to what's really news dramatically in the story.
I love the shot. Jimmy Muro, my Steadicam operator and first camera operator, did this. This is one. A lot of shots in this movie in one, which I love. Which you feel like you're with them, you know.
Yes.
And this was built. It's like the most incredible tree house in the world. It took like a week to build it. We put this.
It looks pretty real.
Yeah. Well, the tree is real, but we built a tree house, a platform,
So that you had a way to stand.
so that we
Right.
couldn't. We didn't have to really have Edward climbing up there. And it was awesome. It was so much fun. It was scary.
Now he's looking from the killer's point of view at the murder victim's house and figuring out that the killer must have sat in the same place. But you cut the shot where he imagines the killer's point of view here.
Yes.
What was that?
I cut it because I didn't want people to think that he was psychic. I was worried that the audience...
It was scripted that he would see, in a sort of flashback, he would see what the killer saw, which was the woman walking past the window.
Yeah. And I was really worried about it. I was worried about... I mean, it worked, but I was worried that some people might be confused. Does he have these visions?
Right.
I only wanted the visions when he was drinking in his hotel room alone, where
Right.
people sometimes have visions, you know. This was a great location. There was a real house here that was from 1770 that was the home of two congressmen.
This is outside of Baltimore, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
And then here's the house we built. Then we transitioned here.
To a house
built that was inspired by the house from 1770 that they wouldn't let us use because they...
And this entire house was built just for the movie outside of Los Angeles.
On the Disney Ranch, yeah.
And here we have Christy Zia in full-blown design glory.
Francis, I've never seen a child as
This is the
dirty
voice
and
of Ellen
disgusting
Burstyn,
as you.
believe it or
Look
not.
at you. You're soaking
Uncredited.
wet. Get out of my bed. No. Go back up to your
You didn't know that?
Yeah, I did know that.
Okay.
Girl, you're hurting me. Shut up, you filthy...
I had Christy do the still photographs because she's so great
Yeah,
with the
I mean,
fan.
here you see in every single shot here, you see hundreds of separate decisions made by Christy Zia and her
Into the
and her
bath.
team.
Take off your nightshirt and wipe yourself off.
I love this
Hurry up.
upstairs kind of
Now give me
layer
my scissors from the
of
medicine
Dollar
chest.
High.
Take that filthy
This was a
thing in
big
your
debate
hand and
about
stretch it
the
out.
voice and
Now.
Yeah,
Look
should
down.
we?
Do you want
What
me
are
to
these
cut it off?
voices? Is the grandmother's voice? Does it then transition into the
dragon's
imaginary
voice.
voice of the Red Dragon? Originally, it was scripted that we heard the Red Dragon's voice
as well, but
in
I couldn't-
Dolarhyde's head.
I got the great actors reading the dragon's voice, but I just could never make it work. I just felt like it became
Well,
hokey.
It was a potential for people laughing where you didn't want them to.
This is a CGI shot where we erased his teeth to put in the...
So that you just see gums. for a
Yes, you
moment.
just see gums.
I have a screenwriter friend who said, "What has become of this prop?"
So I think the editor has it. I'm sure Dino has one.
This book?
Yeah, there's two of them. And Universal maybe has one. I should have one, but
Yeah, and I should have.
you and I should have it. Why don't we have one? We can auction it like in 20 years.
Anyway, talk a little bit about how you got Ralph Fiennes into this cast.
Well, like I said, I went after the actors that everyone told me I couldn't get. Oh, Rafe's never going to do a movie like this. He's a Shakespearean actor. And basically, I sent him the script. And he loved it so much, he agreed to fly in and meet with me. And I gave him my vision of the movie. I told him that, he was not going to live in a haunted house.
He told me he was very attracted to the idea of playing a monster who had a soul.
Yeah,
and who had some kind of inner life and was not just a boogeyman.
He loved the relationship between him and Reba and Emily Watson's character. He loved that there was humanity in this horrible person doing horrible things, but there was some humanity.
Here's a great sequence that we should probably talk about in the way that you staged it.
This was originally written, if you remember, as an outdoor exercise scene. And I said to Ted, Ted, I can't see Hannibal Lecter, even if there was guards all around, even if they cleared the whole yard, I can't see him in an exterior location on a prison. Even the scene was originally through a fence.
He was in a sort of dog run or something,
Yeah.
a big mesh fence.
And the dialogue between Will Graham and Hannibal was through a fence.
Right.
And it was an electrified fence.
Right.
But I said, well, then there's no threat.
Right.
There's no real threat. And I said, why don't we put him on a dog leash? And I found this location, which is in an actual location for the mentally disturbed. There's actually mental patients all over this building.
And this was another case where Christy would talk to Brett, and then she would send me drawings for the design for this, knowing that it might help me as I thought about the scene, writing the scene. Christy had a lot of fun with the look of this scene, and so did Dante.
Dante did an amazing job because Dante kind of interpretation, we put a lot of smoke in here so that those lights would, the white light.
Dante liked the way Lecter goes in and out of the brightness, so that he almost seems to be like a ghost.
Yeah, which is like evil light as well. He said evil light doesn't only have to be dark, it can be white
it can
as
be very
well.
white.
And this leash thing, I love.
I think he meant to use the bolt cutter to enter the house, but he didn't.
And I love, and I that shot that I did earlier where you see the line that says "Do not cross." It was the last shot of the night, and I almost forgot it, but I said, you know what? In this whole scene when I shot it, I don't remember seeing the floor. I have to establish so the audience knows that there's a "Do not cross" line. Why is he standing? And the original idea for the scene was that you wouldn't know where you are. You would think it was a dream sequence. If you look, it's shot very close.
Well, the way you shot Edward's entrance into this room, we don't know at first where he is or whether it's a dream or what's going on. And then here comes Lecter walking towards him with no bars between them.
And then we pop out and reveal that he's on a leash.
It's a great moment in the film. When I was working on the first draft of this, I just thought, this is a scene that's not in the book. Most of these Lecter scenes are not in the book. But I thought if I were directing this movie, boy, would I like a chance to get away from that cell for once and give the actor a chance to use his whole body and have nothing in between the two actors. And, you know.
To me, it was really the parallel of the scene with Jodie and Tony at the museum.
Yes, in Memphis.
In Memphis, in that big cell that Christy designed, which was amazing. I said I needed a set piece. I said to Christy, I need a set piece that's as magnificent as that, because that really opened up the movie.
Well, I just thought, you know, you'd be very grateful to not have the plexiglass in between them for once.
Yeah.
And to have them be able to move together, walk together. So sometimes just the technical challenges that you face force more creativity.
For now. It was only his first time. Already in Atlanta, he did much better. Rest assured, my dear Will, this one will give you plenty of exercise.
I love Will's reaction to that line. Edward's great when he's not saying lines, actually.
Well, you know, I think the mark of great acting is how interesting is an actor when he's only listening.
Yeah, he's a good listener. He's a very
Jodie Foster is a great listener.
Yeah.
She listens with such intelligence and such engagement, and Edward can do the same thing. So can Tony. It really is a hallmark of great acting. You see that a lot with Ralph Fiennes in this movie. He doesn't have a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
He's listening and thinking and reacting.
And it's a very poignant performance by Rafe, because it's hard to, it's easy to play the monster. It's hard to be the guy who's a horrible monster.
It's hard to make the audience care about that character instead of just dismiss them.
Robin.
This is Azure Sky, who's one of my favorite young actresses, who was in 28 Days and in Bandits. She had a small part in Bandits, and she was awesome.
And again, the importance that Brett gives to casting every part, even if it's an actor who only has a one-page scene. You want somebody who looks like they could star in their own movie. If this movie suddenly became about this bookstore, it would be interesting for the next 90 minutes.
Even the voice of the girl on the phone, I cast the voice very specifically.
Did you drive the studio crazy by waiting to cast some of these parts for so long?
Till last minute, yeah.
Darn it, she never did.
I'm just a temp. Linda will be in on Monday.
Gosh, and I have to catch FedEx in about 5 minutes. I hate to bother Dr. Bloom about it home, because he told Linda to send it, and I didn't want to get her into trouble.
This was hard for timing, because it's one shot, and it's a lot of dialogue, and I wanted the camera to land right at the right place, and, the camera and the lens that you pick, helps with the emotion of the scene and the intensity of the scene and the realness of it, and...
Is it hard to move in like this without changing lenses and keep the focus?
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially anamorphic. The focus on this movie was impossible. Mike Weldon was the AC on this movie, and he's a genius because, if you notice, there's no...
Anamorphic is widescreen?
Anamorphic is widescreen, but just there's not a lot of depth of field at all.
Right.
So it's impossible to focus when you're moving, into a subject, and it's just the hardest thing ever. And... we spent 3 days shooting these inserts. No, I'm kidding. But Edward wanted to start looking at the book from the beginning. He said, I got to get into it. I think his method is pretty interesting, and it works to some extent because in this type of movie, the script was so tight, I don't think you needed it, but for his process, he always wanted to go back to like what he was doing 20 minutes before we started the scene.
Right.
Which
that he could hit the ground running, when in the parts that are going to be on the screen.
This is my least favorite shot in the whole movie, only because it felt like the camera was attached to his back.
Well, maybe I should have scripted it so that there are more specific reactions to him as he walks through there.
Yeah, no, there was, but I shortened it, actually.
All right.
I'm Francis Dohraggin.
I love the lighting in here because it's an infrared lab, and I'm like, it's supposed to be black. How do we see if
It's supposed to be in pitch darkness.
pitch dark? And Dante just the highlights.
Well, here was a moment that I was sort of proud of as a screenwriter. We've never gotten a really good look at Dohragg's face in this movie. We've seen him from behind. We've seen him in a stocking mask. We've seen him in shadows. We've held him back like the shark in Jaws. We haven't really seen the killer.
Okay, here we go.
And now we're going to see him for the first time as a blind woman can't see him.
What do you need the eye
That's the kind of effect that you love to try to make happen as a screenwiter.
And I'm very proud of the fact that we didn't know she was blind here
Right.
until this moment, which was written so beautifully.
It's held back. We maybe wondering
Because she's
if
moving around
blind.
like she's seeing.
Right.
You don't really notice it if you don't know the
Because
story.
she's so used to this
And then
room.
this little moment, and then his reaction to
Guess
it.
I don't need to tell you that.
To me, the relationship between these two characters was always the heart of this movie.
Oh, Mr. D.
It was a huge emotional part of the book. It had not been really dramatized to this extent in Manhunter, which had other concerns, which was more concerned with the police procedural main plot.
It was really Will Graham's story.
It was
I
really
think,
Will Graham's story, and I thought, well, the book is almost as much Dohragg's story as Will Graham's story, and I was fascinated by this kind of Beauty and the Beast love story, and the idea that he feels something very close to a kind of strange love for this woman because she is not judging him, because she can't see the ugliness inside him that he feels everyone can see.
This is kind of the beginning of the relationship between Reba and Fran. Actually, this shot coming up is my favorite shot with the people with the umbrellas, kind of silhouette in the background.
This is a huge step for this character to take. He's scared. She has no reason to be scared, but he's terrified.
This is actually the first thing I shot with Rafe and Emily.
Really?
Yeah. Emily just came really prepared with that blind.
People have actually asked me if she was blind.
Really?
Sophisticated moviegoers, but I guess had not seen Emily's other work.
Wow.
Mandy is a fool. Ride with me. For my pleasure.
You want to come in? I'll fix us a drink. Maybe another.
Remember, this was in Baltimore,
Come in.
and
This set is Baltimore.
no, this is L.A. Actually. This is a practical location as well.
When is the zoo
It's a lot harder to move the cameras and stuff around
Yeah.
in a real house.
Yeah, actually, we had to come back here a second day. This is where I fell really behind on this day. Such a small location, getting the lights, and I love this scene. You know, it was very hard to decide,
How much to make of things like the
like this knife thing. Yeah,
Right.
it was really difficult. I love that knife. It's a beautiful knife. The details, the props.
Anyway, I've always tried to hang on to what that cougar looked like. Although by now, to tell you the truth, what
This
I
was
see in my head,
made up stuff. It's not in the book.
Oh, really?
But I knew that they were going to have a scene later with the tiger, the sedated tiger, and I wanted to set up some deeper meaning for that scene for her. So I added this little section.
you don't say much, do you?
There was actually a scene that was left out. That was his arrival, but we just thought it was Mark thought it was
Oh, where they first,
unnecessary.
there was a scene where they first arrived and walked into the apartment for the first time here.
Yeah.
One of the things that amazes me about Rafe in this is that the script so often gives him so little to work with. The character is painfully shy. He speaks in monosyllables.
Some kind of soft power.
And this was a scene that I used to test the actors
I remember
with.
seeing the test for the auditions.
And this was the scene that helped me decide that the actors that we tested weren't right for the role, because they can get the Dohraggin torturing Freddie Lounge scene,
I know what it's like.
but to have a vulnerability
Right,
here,
right.
and but you still have to fear this guy
It's
because
a tremendous feat of acting to accomplish as much as he does with so little to say.
I want to know if you're smiling or frowning.
And it was my biggest worry, actually, going into the production, was that we would not be able to find an actor who could do everything that this part needed, because this is a part where the actor has to bring so much, and the script doesn't help him as much as it does other actors.
And this is really where you see his imperfection, which is his cleft lip, which Matthew Mungo, who's a brilliant makeup artist and effects makeup artist, did such a realistic job of it. And I tend to do a lot of tests for hair and makeup and the tattoo. You know, we spend a lot of time.
I've been to their house, yeah,
When-
but I still don't have much sense.
When you work with Dino and Martha, do they have input? Do they want input into those kinds of choices, or is that left mostly to you?
Well, I love working with Dino. I mean, not only is the guy, a legendary producer, but it's great working with Dino and Martha together because it's kind of
It's a whole other energy.
it's
yeah.
a whole other energy. But
Right.
each one has their own opinion of things,
Right.
and they're a great team, a producing team. I never worked with like a producing team.
They are. They're very, very shrewd about script.
Yeah.
I've found.
Well, you guys delivered. I know. I mean, you did a lot of work with Dino and Martha before I even came on board, and you delivered a first draft basically that was shootable.
The first draft was greenlit by the studio, and it had a lot to do with Dino and Martha's notes,
Yeah,
because they're very shrewd about what the audience needs to know and when they need to know it, and that kind of the sense of the rhythms of the story and the rhythms of the acts. They have a really good grasp.
This is my favorite section of the film. This is where the film really, the pace of it. I thought Mark
It seems
did.
like it really takes off here.
Yeah. This is Run from Run DMC, who unfortunately I cut out of the film. Not completely, but that was him.
That was the top of his head.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful appearance.
Yeah.
But the story really takes off here.
Yeah.
And the pacing of this section to me is very exciting. The music and the editing here.
This is where I was telling Harvey, can you do it twice as fast? Harvey tends to pause in the strangest places. But it always comes out very natural. I mean, he's a brilliant actor.
You had always wanted to work with him, I guess.
Always, yeah. Oh, Edward.
You had always wanted to work with
Harvey, yeah.
yes.
I mean, ever since I was a kid, I grew up on it.
Possibly from the Tooth Fairy. Number one priority.
This was a Dante shot.
It's a spin.
Yeah, let's go around him. I said, oh, sure, I don't want to get dizzy here.
Right.
It's like, no, it's an urgent
But it does
scene.
create
And
the
it
urgency of what's
creates
going
a
on
tremendous
here.
amount of
The fact
urgency.
that events are kind of spinning out of control, suggested by that.
Because of 9/11, we couldn't fly a helicopter through Washington skyline, so that was a
That was one of our few CGI shots.
which is really it's called a composite because we shot a plate, and then we shot a real helicopter.
Right.
This was done on the set. Rafe read this on the set.
Standing next to them.
No, not when during the scene actually, but he just read it once, and this was the take I think we ended up using.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a one-take performance. He just was so in the mode.
Yeah. He reads this letter very well. I love all of this sort of high-tech FBI forensic stuff, and it's something that we couldn't get a whole lot of into the script because of just sheer space considerations.
Yeah.
So where we could do these kinds of things, it was really fun.
I love that shot. And that shot. This whole section. All the shots of Lecter in the
Brett,
cell.
you love all your shots.
I know, not all of them, but those specific ones.
I like how all the lighting changes through this.
Yeah. This is Tony Hopkins' stand-in. It's the only...
I wonder why he had a British accent. I wonder why the superintendent of a mental hospital in Baltimore had a British accent.
Well, he migrated.
Right.
I love, this is Ken Leung, who's been in like 3 of my other movies.
On the right.
On the right. He's a great stage actor from Broadway. And he was the villain in the first Rush Hour, and he was in Family Man. And he's just
He has a lot of fun with this part, and he's very good in it.
He's excellent. He's really very real.
Colored inks are transparent infrared. These could be the tips of T's here and here.
This whole sequence is quite close to the book, which is Tom Harris is very well grounded in all of these procedures, and it's just a real gift to the screenwriter to have an author have done so much research and be so on top of these things.
They made that up.
3 T's and an R in Tattler.
So how do you communicate through a tabloid? You got what? News stories?
This scene was much longer, really, but we realized in the playing of the scene that the audience, for instance, is an example where the audience was ahead of everybody, and we shortened it because the characters just seemed like they were like...
Right. Well, the audience already knows who Dohraggin is
Yeah.
At this point. We held him back for as long as we could, but once we've shown him, the audience is getting ahead of the...
That's my favorite shot. This is a great example of great operating. I mean, to go from his face down to that anamorphic, it's just...
You mean camera operation?
Camera operation, yeah.
We were back and forth about this, you remember?
Yeah, this is my editor fought me on this.
Well, I thought, like, let the glove be hanging out of his pocket, and Lecter sees it, and perhaps Lecter starts to think something's up.
It doesn't really pay off.
Doesn't really pay off, but I just thought it would be intriguing.
Well, it does in a subtle way. He says, nice...
Nice word with that blackout, especially.
Yeah. So that's what you think tips it off. I think that's what Mark wanted. I love... Okay, I have to say this. This next cut is my favorite cut in the movie. Not my favorite shot, but my favorite cut.
You mean going from this scene?
Going from this shot, once the camera lands, to when he hands him the paper. It's just my favorite edit. It's the most seamless edit in the film. Watch this. It's very subtle, but you might catch it. Watch this. I love that.
Well, only a director could get excited about that, I have to tell you. It's
exciting.
It is a great passing of a piece of paper.
It just cut beautifully.
I'm thinking it's a book code.
Book code?
The first numeral.
I like the pace of this. Reminds me of old films with Sterling Hayden in it, you know. A lot of quick talking here, but you need to go quickly through this. I mean, people do normally talk over each other, like we're talking over each other.
But in a movie, it's confusing unless it's an Altman movie.
Yeah.
But you know, in the movies in the 40s, they would have, you know, his Girl Friday, His Gal Friday. That movie, the script was probably 300 pages long.
Yeah, exactly.
And they got it all in an hour and a half because they were talking so quickly.
Or Shakespeare, you know, this is a lot like Shakespeare. You got to kind of race through it.
Besides, if we sweat him, we lose the connection.
If the Tooth Fairy picked the book, then it's something he knew Lecter would have in his cell.
Can we get a list of his books?
From Chilton, maybe. No, wait. Rankin and Willingham, when they tossed his cell, took Polaroids so they could put everything back in place.
Ask them to meet me with pictures of his bookshelves.
Where?
The library.
Will, I'm leery of letting Lecter's message run without knowing what it says.
The movie's really cooking now for me at this point.
At least it'll encourage.
Well, you hope it has a continuous build. You've introduced all the characters. You've introduced the, you know, the potential danger to Reba. You've got the FBI
This is something,
hot on the scent.
for example, I sent Christy down here that was unavailable to shoot this shot, and she just did a fantastic job.
Christy was the second unit director on this?
On this shot, yeah. She did a great job on that. Very simple, one shot, telling the whole story. Cut into the insert, and then we're off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, you can feel the whole story shift gears here.
This was another digital shot. He had actually had a phone at his ear, and we erased it. Amazing.
That is amazing.
And this is another thing that, you know, like Mark very points out story things that aren't... I didn't shoot this correctly, actually, so you didn't know it was a cookbook. And it was written as a cookbook.
But you can tell it's a cookbook.
No, but now you do.
Oh.
But when I shot it, you didn't know it was a cookbook because I was just on his face. So we did a insert.
It says right now.
Okay, Lloyd.
It says Graham.
This is an example of
Florida. Save yourself.
Dino's and Martha's kind of shrewdness about
storytelling,
and I wanted Mark wanted to lose, and myself and Andy Davis, who's, you know, kind of my creative producer as well, creative producing partner, came up with the idea of just cutting to the chase and not hearing the message,
not hearing Lecter's message about Marathon Florida killed them all.
Florida. And then I think I'm sure I asked you.
Yeah, we talked about it again and again. And
Dino says, yeah, but the audience needs to know what it's more frightening.
The audience, it's more frightening for them if they've heard Lecter's entire message.
This is another example of a scene that wasn't in the script, but after I saw the movie in front of an audience. For me, seeing a movie in front of an audience, forget about what they write.
This was actually the last scene shot because it was added later.
It was added later because I thought originally it just cut to this next shot right here where the helicopter arrives. He gets the phone call, cut, and they're safe.
Right.
There was no tension.
They were too safe too quickly.
And I called up Ted. I said, Ted, maybe we could put some suspense in here. This is supposed to be a psychological thriller that has suspense in it. If we can have and the studio loved the cut of the movie so much That they
let you go
they
back.
gave me the
Right.
money to go back to do it.
Right. Well, sometimes you just don't know until it's assembled, and you say something's missing here.
I had food
we had an
poison-
opportunity
yeah.
here that we didn't take advantage of to have a little bit more tension.
I had food poisoning on this shot, I remember.
On this shot?
Yeah. I was so sick. I was like, I just did not feel good.
It's a great location.
Yeah.
Is he after
This
you?
was originally written to be at the seashore.
This is where I'm going to shoot Superman for Smallville. I'm going to just...
At Smallville?
I'm sorry.
Mary Louise is very, very good in this movie, Mary Louise Parker. And again, is not really given that much to work with by the script.
Yeah.
So she's got to make the most of every moment.
And actually, in the first draft, the draft I read, because I mean, once I got Mary Louise, I said to Ted, Ted, let's give something for women to really.
Well, let's give her a really dramatic moment.
A
And
moment.
that's what began the evolution of the ending of the movie as we revised it.
Yeah.
Where she ends up shooting Dohraggin herself.
There's Barney. We had to get him in
Beneath the
there.
yellow
It's
folder,
Frankie
you
again.
Find your latest rejection slip from the archives. It was brought to me by mistake.
I love this scene. It just goes over a lot of people's heads. I don't know why when they see it.
Sorry.
I think we'll remove Dr. Lecter's toilet seat as well.
This is one of my favorite. This is like you said. Is it easier for me to do the visuals? Not a word in the scene. Originally, in the first draft, there was dialogue.
There was some dialogue.
And I said, let's just sell it. Let me try to sell it in their faces. You know, I mean, now she's having to defend herself.
Now he's brought this horror into his family and
she
danger.
totally sold it. You know?
The PD nailed him.
And look at this. Philip Seymour Hoffman has nothing to do, and he's just...
So he's just being slimy.
Yeah.
He's just dropping
posture.
cigarette ashes everywhere and slumped in the chair and, you know.
I'd like nothing better than to see this dirt sandwich pulling 5 at Leavenworth. But maybe there's a better way to handle this.
Yeah, what's that?
I think we ought to give him a story.
The Tooth Fairy's ugly, and he's impotent with members of the opposite sex. Also...
This guy on the left is Alex Berliner. He's a real paparazzi from all the premieres. Everyone recognizes. This is the one guy that probably takes everyone in Hollywood out of the movie when they see him, because they.
Right.
He's a real paparazzi who like harasses them at every premiere.
That's a tip we got from Dr. Lecter, by the way.
Right, so it's true the Lecter's actually helping with your investigation.
Anthony Hopkins actually came down to the set on this day. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Well, you're not shooting today. He's like, oh, no, I just wanted to see Philip Seymour Hoffman work. He's such a big fan of Philip Seymour Hoffman's that Tony came down just to watch him work. Actually, Philip reminds me of as like a young Tony, kind of, you know? Same kind of discipline, same kind of focus, same kind of preparation. I know I found out later that Tony reads the script like 250 times before he shoots. I feel like Philip does the same thing. I didn't ask him, but it seems that way. He's so prepared. He comes knowing, you know, he comes with his character kind of in his bones.
You scratch mine. If my story draws the fairy in any kind of attack on Graham and you nail this scumbag, I get an exclusive.
Fuck your allowance.
I think that's Philip's own wardrobe.
It's very distinctive.
Yeah.
All right, it's a pleasure doing business with you. Chumps.
This was a great editorial thing. This line,
I feel like I need a shower.
I need a shower, was on camera.
Okay with this?
But it's some lines you don't need to see the actor say.
Oh, no, of course not.
So, yeah, I'm okay with it.
I wish we had something better, but there's only 10 days till the next full moon. We've got to rattle his cage. We'll stake out this.
For me, this shot is the next shot coming up is this one of the most beautiful shots with this golden light on the street here.
I like this little, we talked about cutting this at one point, but I like this little scene with the newsie here. I'm not sure that the audience can really follow exactly what's going on here, which is that this is a place where you can get the newspaper before anybody else can get it.
Yeah.
Which turns out to be important in the plot. And I'm not sure they can follow that, but I just thought I like the
Originally it was written at an
switchblade
airport.
at an airport terminal.
Yeah.
What?
But I just like the moment he gets here to be menacing.
You told me what?
It's another guy part of the Ratner ensemble of actors, Gianni Russo, who's actually Carlo in The Godfather, was married to Sonny's wife. I love this car.
The Hoffman-mobile.
Yeah.
I like how he
It just
smashes.
scrapes the bottom. This is fun because it played in one. I shot coverage of it, but it's just camera moves in. It's more of a surprise, you know?
Right.
And this is great. I mean, his getting knocked out. Look how much acting went into that arm. Just, and this is just a fantastic set, you know.
Here's a chance to see more of the set, and a very difficult scene for the two actors.
Oh, yeah.
Difficult to play. It's very stressful and emotional, and to get the intensity that they need for it. And take after take, probably.
I got yelled at maybe at least 4 times by Philip during this scene because he was actually in his underwear glued to this chair. And,
well, he wasn't actually glued.
Well, some kind of glue.
Some kind of something.
Not stuff that ripped his hair.
But no,
off.
I mean, it's not much fun to sit there in your underwear.
It was not comfortable,
you know,
I can tell you that.
Doing this. It's not fun for Rafe, who had to be naked in so many of these scenes.
By the way, this is the only scene I showed to any actor. I showed it to Phil.
Where am I?
Because I made him do so many different variations of it. And not that he was nervous about it, but I wanted him to see it, and he called me up and he said, "This scene is fantastic. I love it." And it made me really happy, you know. I showed it to a meeting before I locked the picture.
This was a scene that I think we had to shorten a good deal. It's quite long in the book, and it was pretty long in the script.
Would pay a big reward.
And it's a question with this kind of scene of you don't want to put the audience through more than they're willing to bear. It's kind of horrific.
It's funny because, you know, Rafe came with this real brilliant, you know, way that he was going to play this, and he basically said, I don't want to indicate that I'm crazy. I'm just, these words are insane already. I'm just saying them, you know. And so he did it, you know, we did it a bunch of times, and just in the most subtle performance, but brilliant performance. And I said, Rafe, you know what, we're here. Can you just do me a favor? Can you just go over the top for me as far as you can go and just show me the most insane version of this? And he does it. And it's like stentorian. It's like, I am the dragon. Like he's on stage, right? And he came to me after, he goes, Brett, you're not going to use that take, are you? And I look at him and I go, no shit, Rafe. But it was great. But that's why. But then I think the takes that we ended up using in that line of I am the dragon was the one we used after he did that over the top performance.
And probably informed it in some way.
Yeah.
Underneath.
And I think Rafe felt really comfortable with me because he wasn't afraid to show me his fears or his insecurities. You know, actors can be unsure of things, and this is, you know, the scary thing is that there are people really like this that exist.
It's hard to believe, but there are.
Yeah. But we can't really talk to those people, you know.
Well, they're not willing to be consultants on the movie.
Yeah. This tattoo, I thought, if this didn't work, it would have been a problem. And the tattoo.
Did it take like 5 hours every day?
More. I mean, he would come in at 2 in the morning.
2 in the morning?
2 in the morning, and we would be shooting at 8. 6 hours on this table naked while he was being painted. And he had no qualms about being naked.
And would it wash off?
But yeah, they would have to redo it.
I mean, he couldn't wear it for 2 or 3 days?
No.
It'd be redone every time?
Yeah. He was this guy. I mean, I got to tell you, Rafe embodied this character and brought life to it. You know, he really...
Well, he's talked about how difficult it was to play this part.
Yeah.
But he was not afraid of it, and he didn't take this character for granted in any way.
I see.
He tried to find every possible nuance within him.
This is Jacoby in human form. Do you see?
Yes.
I love the William Blake stuff.
Form.
You know, the painting and the inspiration for him.
Changing.
It goes much deeper in the book.
Personally, I always thought we shouldn't see any more photographs here. I would have not shown these photographs.
Yeah.
I would have only shown reactions on their faces, but it's the kind of thing that you go back and forth on forever.
Yeah.
In post-production.
No what?
Not me. Not me.
Philip was really terrified here. I mean, both these guys together, the excitement of just having these 2 great actors in the room together.
Yeah. Well, Rafe talks about how when you're working with great actors, it raises your game.
Yeah.
And you give a performance you didn't even know that was in you for that day.
Yeah, y'all. Yeah.
I am the dragon.
This is the performance.
You call me insane. You are privy to a great becoming.
Like his monologue.
And you recognize nothing. You are an ant.
And is he saying this right into the camera, or is he saying it to Philip on the
He's
set?
saying it off oh, no, Philip's there. It is a little close to eyeline because I feel like...
But the camera is pushed almost into his face.
Yeah.
And he has to ignore it while he's performing.
Yeah. And then I love this move, which comes around.
I like the light on his eye.
Yeah.
You owe me all.
There's a whole discussion here about the recording of this.
Yeah. Really, in the next scene, about how to link these together.
This, you know, it's amazing how when you're pressed for time, how you come up with really creative ideas. And I end up shooting this in one. This camera's just moving around, building tension, and it works so well. I didn't originally intend on doing this, but because I had no time, I couldn't do the coverage. I said, let me figure out how to do this in one, tell the whole story, and then I went back and shot the overhead shot later.
And the overhead shot is actually 2 extras, right?
Is
2
it
body doubles.
double? No, it's 1 double. Mark really wanted. He said, "You got to show this tattoo." He said, "Go. You got to go back and." I was against this whole thing, even the spit. And
well, here we are again with something we went back and forth on. Whether it's necessarily useful to show that.
That was not easy, by the way, because that's a real person on fire. You know?
That's not true.
No, it is.
It was a stuntman?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I thought it was a dummy.
No, it was a real person.
And now I want to serve him. He knows you made me
This was a whole discussion, too, about, you know...
Well, about whether we should hear Lowndes screaming or not.
Yeah.
And the fact that it doesn't...
Because we'd already heard it, and again, into the repetition,
and it doesn't link up realistically with what we heard, because there's a missing section.
Because there's a missing section. And
but in the end, it was felt that
I thought it was more effective.
The emotional effect on these hardened FBI agents was worth keeping it in there.
Yeah. The whole idea about Harvey Keitel came because when I went down to the FBI, I met all these profilers, and they were all like tough New York cops. And what they said was very similar to what you wrote in the script, which was, it's not the dead people that bother me, it's the living.
It's the survivors.
It's the survivors, talking to them, and is very difficult.
Well, I think it's important in these movies to show that these characters are meant to be rounded human beings. They're not just functionaries filling a role in the plot. They have their own feelings, and they have their own vulnerabilities.
Well, that was my attraction really to the script, because I'd never done a psychological thriller before or a movie like this, but what it had, which is what I knew, which I think what Stacy saw in me and Mary Perrin, Dino and Martha saw, that I had the capability of handling the heart and the emotion. The emotion.
I mean, these are not just sort of plot functionaries. They're fumbling. They're not Superman. They're fumbling towards answers, but imperfectly.
Yeah.
They
and the relationship between
and they're slow and they but they're dogged.
But the relationship between Francis and Reba, to me, was very touching, because I was like, wow. As I was reading it, I'm like, I'm scared for her, but somehow I want them to get together
in some impossible way, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, but I mean, you should feel that way.
Yeah, and I said, if I can capture this on film, then I think it's a movie that's worthy of getting made. If I could do this, meaning as a filmmaker, because I've read great scripts that I said, I don't know how to do this.
Well, you always look for where the heart of a story is. It has to work on a physical level. It has to be suspenseful and engaging and funny and all those things. But
it was also very touching.
It's always finally about character.
Yeah.
And so you're looking for where the heart of the movie is emotionally.
I think I should go back to Baltimore.
After what he tried to pull?
I think Lecter picked up on something in the missing part of that note. Maybe not a name, but something. Enough to
And this is where I'm trying to justify another visit to Tony Hopkins with the screenplay. It's really something that's not in the book.
And I think what you do fantastically is capture Lecter's voice. I mean,
that was kind of
it felt so organic to the.
I probably could not have done that if I had not already done one of these movies.
Right.
It would have been hard to, just from a dead start, mimic the way Thomas Harris writes Lecter, because Lecter is so smart, and he's always 3 jumps ahead of everybody, and he's crazy, and I'm not as smart as him or as crazy as him.
He dropped a whole church roof on the heads of 34 of his worshippers, just as they were groveling through a hymn. He wouldn't begrudge you one journalist.
I love the lighting there.
Put me next
too.
to him,
It's
Doctor.
great.
Are you in some SWAT team? Oh, well. Where's the fun in that?
He'll have to take his chances, too. A roof can fall on anybody.
Not on Molly and Josh.
But not on Molly and Josh, I take it. Not yet, anyway. First he kills the pet, then the family. Freddie was your pet.
They're safe now.
No one will ever be safe around you, Will.
I just love the light. Dante really paints with light.
Yeah.
Clever work on his note, by the way. And that blackout was...
And then this mirror was kind of
What else
really
was in that
disturbing looking in it. It's had this weird distortion.
Yeah.
Put me next to him.
And that was tricky.
That's what you want, isn't it?
It's similar to that shot in their first scene
Yeah.
together, where
Twice.
the character in the
Give him a
background is
chance
out of
to kill me.
focus.
Go on, then. Seduce me with your
I love that line. Seduce me with your wares.
Not in the book, but it's the kind of thing that
Yeah.
you figure out.
It sounds like
he never says anything in the most simple and obvious way.
Yeah.
There's always some kind of game going on where he's amusing himself with his word choice too.
Bit measly, don't you think?
Turn it down then, see what
And
kind of time
Tony
you
did
get
not
with
change a
Silver.
word of this. I mean,
No,
I love this.
Are these threats, William?
I'm waiting, Doctor.
Tony is an actor who
Got
does
nothing
every
left to
line
say.
as written.
A little sample, then. Why not?
His eyes are
See
ice
the Blake,
blue.
have you?
Yes.
There's
No, you've
such a
looked but
strange
not
color.
seen.
Yeah.
Transformation is the key. The man-dragon. His ugliness transformed by power. Look for a military record with combat training. Look for extensive tattooing and corrective surgery, most likely to the face.
Come on, I'm past all that already.
I love
Just
his no
know it.
here.
Now give me what I need. How is he choosing the women?
I've already suggested how. The answer was right in front of you. You looked but didn't see.
Bullshit! No riddles. Just tell me.
No. It's your turn. I asked you before for a small courtesy.
And this is actually, honestly, my favorite moment of the lighting when
Before I
he
tell
walks
you
into
anything
this
more,
light here.
You will make certain arrangements for
Just-
me.
Really special.
What kind of arrangements?
Oh, nothing much. Shall we say dinner and a show?
You ready to tell me what kind of outing?
I was amazed to see the daily. This was one of the scenes where you sent me dailies of it,
Yeah.
and I was amazed to realize that the adult male tiger in this scene is not even not even sedated.
I called up Mark and I said, Mark, I think we're gonna have to reshoot this because we couldn't. There's a new laws. You're not allowed to sedate.
You're not allowed to sedate the animal.
the animals because there's been a lot of deaths from sedating.
So you can't see it as you watch the movie, but just out of camera to the left of this tiger, near its head, is its trainer sitting there, trying to coax it into being still, while this actress, terrified actress.
When you saw the dailies, did you think we didn't have the scene? Did you?
I thought, and also the real life tiger is roaring like crazy. You can hear some of it, but in the dailies, he's roaring so loud sometimes you can't hear the dialogue.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, he starts to,
we actually adjusted the scene on the set where he said he's a bit noisy.
Right, it's a bit noisy, right.
We had
and,
the
and of course, Emily has to reach out and start stroking this unsedated tiger that's probably 10 feet long and weighs 800 pounds with all of his teeth. And the trainer is at the other end of the tiger, just out of the shot to the left there, holding out little tidbits to feed it.
Yeah.
And I thought the audience will never understand the courage it took to have the concentration that these actors
The
had
only
in the
thing we
scene.
wouldn't let her do, of course, for insurance purposes, was this shot right here.
This shot where she's
This had to be another trainer.
She's actually fondling the testicles of the tiger.
It was actually, she couldn't even be with the male in the room. The one that she's petting is a female because they seem to be calmer than the males.
Right.
And then
But I mean, in the
we went for
dailies, in the dailies of this scene, what you see again and again is the tigers start to get up, and the actors take 3 or 4 very quick
But
steps
Rafe
backwards.
never moved.
Rafe doesn't move, but everybody else clears away very quickly.
Rafe remained very still.
And I couldn't believe that the animal was not sedated for this scene.
And I went in without the tiger and did all these kind of emotional kind of.
I love this where she hears the tiger's heart beating. It's in the novel. It's a wonderful moment.
Now, what was the meaning of that scene? Can you articulate that to the
Well, that scene is
it
about...
the parallel of the Beauty and the Beast?
It's the Beauty and the Beast scene. It's about him trying to give her something that she has never experienced.
Right.
She's never seen a tiger. And she had the whole story about the cougar she saw when she was a child. It's one of her last visual memories. So it's his way of trying to give her something in this strange...
It's also a foreshadowing of what she's going to be fondling.
It's also, yes, it also is very sexual.
Yeah.
And they're becoming increasingly more sexually interested in each other. It's a brilliant invention by Thomas Harris, that scene. It's from the book. And I mean, what a weird kind of date. If you're going on a date with Frances Dohraggin, what would it look like?
Yeah.
You're at a zoo and a tiger is lying on a table.
What do they want to know?
They find you.
I love both performances in this scene. I really can't take my eyes off of these two actors. I think they're hypnotic.
They tell you how I look.
They said.
Now, it's strange. If you notice in this, she's looking directly into the lens, but
You're very sensitive.
the angle is, straight on. It's not really a standard kind of...
Right.
And you totally believe that you feel her blindness, kind of.
Right.
I just kind of looked through the lens and kind of found the right position for her. Because I was like, she was always asking me, am I looking in the right direction? I said, well, you're blind, so there's no really right direction. If you're looking at it, why don't you look right into the lens and you will see that there's nothing.
Right.
And it really worked. This was very strange because I couldn't figure out how to not make people feel, because some people, I guess, felt this way, that they were going to get up and dance. I love this moment.
Because you go to a wide shot here, as the music starts again, it looks to me like they're going to do a Fred and Ginger here or something. Which was not the intention.
Right. But Mark and I could not figure it out.
Perhaps the choice of going to the wide shot. That's.
But he's stopping because he's
stopping because he doesn't want to run into her.
Yeah.
Where the hell are you, Dee?
It's creepy. I love this.
But it is a kind of dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a kind of strange, very strange dance of seduction going on here.
Do you want to know what I think about it?
Very kind of romantic as well.
Well, in a strange way.
It's breathing kind of heavy.
Well, it's probably the first time he's ever kissed a woman, or a living woman.
Now, would you show me where the bathroom is?
That we went back and reshot this.
Why?
Because I didn't get this for this insert.
For this moment.
And that's digital blood in the water, believe it or not. It's done by the computer.
Well, it's just a wonderful little moment because she can't see the teeth in the jar. She can't see the shattered
broken
mirror.
Yeah.
She doesn't realize the increasing danger she's in. And again, you're telling a story with visuals and not with dialogue that really means very much.
I have to do a little work.
Sure. If I'm keeping you from working,
No,
I'll go.
I want you to be here. I do. It's just a tape I need to watch. It won't take long.
This is similar for me. It's similar to my scene in Family Man where he's watching the videotape.
Another family movie.
The family movie.
Another family movie, right?
And I did the same thing with Danny where he transitioned the music on the recorded music that was on the tape into score. So now it's this music that's in the background.
Right. Which is Duke Ellington.
Duke Ellington transitioning into the score.
Right. No, it's great.
I love this. I love breast shots in movies.
This is just the most bizarre kind of seduction scene. That's what we always liked about it. I mean,
this is actually the editor's daughter, by the way.
Oh, really? That's Mark's daughter?
She's so cute.
So here we are with another family movie. You shot hundreds of feet of family videos for this.
And this is the girl from Family Man.
Oh,
Who played
really?
the neighbor.
Oh, I didn't remember.
Yeah. Very talented and sexy woman who I knew would help in arousing Ray Fiennes. Lisa Thornhill. She's a great actress.
Yeah, I mean, I just love how many different things are going on here. He's aroused by seeing his next set of victims, as well as by the proximity of Reba.
What's it about?
She assumes he's watching some kind of, business promotional video or something. She has no idea what he's watching. She's excited because she's rarely dated, in recent years. And they're both so unsure of themselves.
It's what?
And Emily's really a sexy woman. I gotta tell you. She's really got a tremendous amount of sex appeal.
Homework. Yeah.
I just, there's nothing like this in any of Thomas Harris's other books. There's nothing quite so strange and wonderful as this kind of scene. which
And
was
it's so bold, you know.
It's very bold. Was always one of the most powerful scenes in the book to me. I mean, Francis Dohraggin is so scared that he will hurt this woman that he's falling in love with, and she is still unaware of how dangerous he is.
See how the music transitions with the score. I'm good at shooting monitors, TV sets.
Yes, you should really only shoot TV sets from now on, and family videos.
Yeah.
Will there be family videos in your next movie?
Absolutely.
All right.
I love this shot. I like a lot of my shots, huh?
This is
a lot great camera work.
It lasts for about 1 second. Now it's already over. That's Francis Dohragg's happiest moment of his life.
Yeah.
And then immediately
paranoia sets in.
Paranoia sets in, the fear, the anger.
But notice the camera hasn't cut, and the camera's going to go with him. This is Jimmy Muro, Steadicam operator. He's really unbelievably talented.
It's very hard to operate this because of the sheer weight and bulkiness of it, right?
Yeah. And also the distance, like showing, and then going in to...
Right.
Where, like, also, the camera movement is also to hide his private parts.
Well, of course. But, I mean, it's very hard to hold this huge camera and move behind the actor.
And I love this with the blown out windows.
This is a scene where we, as scripted, we began to hear the dragon's voice.
Yeah, and we dropped it because...
it turned out that it's much more effective to just see Rafe hearing it without the audience hearing it.
Well, his performance, I think voiceover is used when you need to help tell a story.
Right, and in fact, his performance is telling the story that there are voices in his head. And in a way, it might have just detracted from his performance.
Yeah.
It's a great shot.
Just for a little while.
It's actually on a stage. It's a lot of pieces.
I mean, the character is in so much pain. He's very tormented, which is just not something you usually see in the bad guy in one of these movies.
He's fighting it.
He doesn't want to be the bad guy.
Yeah. He likes her, actually. He's fond of her.
Yes.
He's fond of her, and this is a great scene that really expresses that. I think this is where the audience kind of starts to go in.
Usually this kind of character in this kind of movie is just a sort of sadist.
Bad guy.
He's a bad guy. He's a sadist who really enjoys the things he does.
The audience starts to get empathy for him at this point because...
This character really doesn't enjoy what he does. He feels driven to do it. He feels that he's forced to do it by the Red Dragon. He would almost rather kill himself than to go on and sort of torment. And it's an amazing thing for the bad guy in a thriller to be seen in that kind of light.
I had a really terrific time last night, Dee. But this morning, you seem like a different person. Is something wrong?
I have to go now. I have to go away.
Where?
On a trip.
When will I see you again?
Reba, you have to get out. Get out now.
Dear Mr. Graham, here are the Jacoby's personal effects as discussed. I hope these things might help you. Good hunting. Byron Metcalf.
There's a famous drawing from Silence.
Yes, of the Belvedere, the Duomo.
Duomo, yeah.
Yes.
Well, how many more
This scene reminds me of the wonderful dinners we had at Martha and Dino.
Yeah, Martha and Dino's house.
I wonder if this scene actually was suggested.
And that's
by
Dino's actually favorite scene.
dish? No, scene.
Well, he loved it. We got a lot of great food working with the De Laurentiis.
Yes, it's the best Italian restaurant in Los Angeles.
We can't afford to let the waste up.
No, again.
More home video.
More home video. My specialty.
Your dissertation must
It's actually the Baltimore Museum for those who are not from Brooklyn.
So nice to finally be able to conduct
For everyone from Brooklyn, they must have been quite startled to see that was the Brooklyn Museum.
You don't look at all like I imagined.
This is Mary Beth Hurt, who's in Family Man, who I'm a big fan of.
Different.
We changed that line, I'm sorry.
Yes.
What was it before? I forgot.
Older.
Yeah.
A great moment, invented by Brett. It's not in the script, but it was a wonderful moment and always gets a huge reaction from the audience.
There. Right there. That's what he wanted the bolt cutter for. To cut that padlock and go in through the basement. But that's a different door.
It's hard. You know, this is hard. This stuff. I'm just thinking back to the time we're shooting this. It's a lot of exposition. It's a lot of story.
Yeah, and even this late in the story, you're still having to deal with all kinds of exposition. It's not
unfolding the investigation.
It's not easy to make these scenes work.
And seeing the actors, once you kind of know who the killer is, you kind of have a lot of information. Watching these guys struggle with it can be frustrating, especially at this point in the movie.
Right, but you have to hope that you can get some energy out of that helps you, because you can't have them jump too easily to these conclusions.
This was the main reason I said, when I read this, when I got to this part in the script, I said, I got to do this movie. And I had to go look at the book immediately to see if it was in the book.
This is such a strange sequence. It is in the book. As I understood it,
I just got to say, it was mind-blowing to me that it was not in the movie Manhunter, because I couldn't. And I understand because it wasn't really Dohragg's story, but I just didn't understand. This is one of the greatest scenes.
What I liked about it was the courage that it takes for that character to go there and destroy that painting. He thinks if he consumes the painting, it will remove the voice from his head, or somehow take the power of the dragon away. Of course, that doesn't happen, but still, it's a selfless, courageous kind of thing for this character to do.
Well, this is where the heart comes in, really, because you see him really wanting to see. That's another thing where it wasn't really explained, but if you ask 100 people, 50 of them will say he's trying to stop. The other people are saying he's trying to get the strength.
He's trying to assume the strength of the dragon to be even more powerful.
And I'm happy with not explaining it.
It could read either way.
Yeah.
It could read either way.
And either way is okay.
And I guess
it's better when it's more poignant when he's trying to stop.
Right. I thought he's trying to stop, but I think sometimes ambiguity works for you.
Yeah.
It's just such a startling image. This fabulously expensive, rare painting.
200-year-old.
Disappearing down his throat.
And this is the actual copy that he's eating. We had a candy version that he didn't want to eat.
He said
no.
Actual paper.
He's actually eating paper. And I said, Rafe, you're going to be sick. You know how many takes I like to shoot. He said, it's okay. And he literally devoured this paper. And this is another example of no dialogue. Just the expression on his face was like, he's a new man.
He's a new man. He's happy. He's off to his home life again.
Yeah.
Mr. Metcalf, do you still have the Jacoby's check stubs and credit card statements? We're looking for any kind of service, call, or purchase that might have required a stranger to come into the house. A repairman or a delivery guy. Yeah.
When you would watch these dailies with Dino and Martha, I was only there once or twice for that. But again, it seemed to me like they had a very shrewd sense of where the best takes were.
Well, their shrewdness came in really length. Dino's very sensitive to pace, I think, and he, like myself, likes to get on with things.
Right.
And
not just like within an act or within the whole movie, within a scene.
Within a scene,
a real shrewd sense of what you can do without.
Yeah, exactly.
That sometimes you get lost in this when you're making these. You get too close.
Where I got the most out of Dino was right before we were about to shoot, and he started kind of going through the script with me and just pulling pages out. Remember?
Well, he would just say, we already know this. We'll understand this without it being said.
Yeah.
And I guess if you've made as many movies,
we're making 600 movies, you kind of
as Dino and Martha, you really begin to learn something about storytelling.
Yeah.
They were a huge help in that way.
It's Chromolux.
This was a great stock shot. And this is the first thing I shot, first day of shooting. It wasn't in my first cut. I ended up putting it back because it helped explain that.
Because it helped to explain that Dohraggin is in some kind of transition.
That he's trying to stop.
Maybe he's trying to
which
stop.
helps us explain the story of why he's eating that painting. But unfortunately, which comes later.
Right.
If it came before or while you were seeing the scene, it would have helped more.
Right.
But here, understanding it.
You weren't happy with the way that scene came out in some versions, but it did seem like very important information emotionally.
And I love this location. This is a real photo lab that we kind of just took over.
And this is a long nighttime shoot.
Yeah, this exterior and the interior of this location are two different places. But
this is the moment where I always wish that she was hurrying much more so that it would catch his interest more. Why is she running into the office at night?
That was my fault.
That was one of the days when we didn't talk on the cell phone.
Yeah. I would usually call Ted and say, Ted, this is what I'm doing. Pick his brain.
I just love, it's in the book, of course. I just love the gathering forces here.
It's all colliding.
They're finally starting to collide and really build up heat among all of these plot lines. They've come together. This is really the first time that they have all come together into one location. The two antagonists. And of course, the score just takes off.
This is something that Dino, for instance, said, you got to shoot this, Brett. I was going to leave this out because I thought, you don't really need it.
Leave out him in his van.
He runs out the next time we see him. This is the only scene that I reshot. And I made a mistake. When I shot the first scene, it goes to show you how blocking has something to do with it. I shot them all sitting down.
Right.
There was no urgency.
It lost its
because
urgency.
I shot it so soon in the schedule, I didn't realize at this time at the movie, we're at the end of the movie, you need to have the energy
This is
going.
the only scene that was totally reshot.
Totally reshot.
Well, and you got them overlapping their lines, which they were not doing originally.
Yeah. I got the pace up and I got the energy up. And the truth is because this scene is a type of scene that at this point you want to get to the end. And this is kind of... This
scene was originally written in two parts with something else in between. So you and Mark ran it together as one scene and made it shorter.
What does that mean? What does he do exactly?
He maintains the equipment for tape transfers.
Would he have access to people's home videotapes?
He has access to every tape that comes through here.
Thanks for dinner, Ralph, and thanks for letting me vent.
Hey, look, no problemo. Reba, listen, I know it's not my place to say this.
That's Frank Whaley, who I loved in Pulp Fiction. I'm a fan of. I've seen Swimming with Sharks. He was great in. And this is the last character I think I cast.
Yes, he was the last to be cast. You had a hard time deciding. How much we should like this guy and how much he should be a buffoon. And finally, of course, decided he should be a real regular guy.
Regular guy who was just trying to sleep with a blind woman.
Who just was attracted to her. But not a jerk, not a fool, not somebody that you can just simply easily dismiss. And again, it's wonderful casting for a very small part.
It's a very small part that he made really stand out, you know. I don't know if you really felt for him when he got killed, but...
Well, I did. I liked him.
Yeah.
You know, I liked the character.
I heard some sighs in the audience. Aww.
He's brash, you know, and everything, but he's not without feeling, and I think you see in that scene his concern for Reba beyond just being attracted to her.
Yeah, I remember calling you and saying, "You think he's sincere here?"
Oh no.
You know.
No, definitely.
And I love calling Ted because Ted, you know.
It's very unusual for a screenwriter to be called on a cell phone from the director on the set. I have to tell you, I don't know if it's ever happened to me before. Maybe once.
But I you know, Ted is my partner. You know, Ted. This came from Ted and also Thomas Harris. I went down and saw Thomas because I was worried. I said, Ray Fiennes is going to say, "What do you think Dohraggin is thinking here?" And I don't know what a killer's thinking, you know. And but it was really all in the book. I mean, all the answers were there. That's what's the benefit of having a novel.
Right.
Is going back and referring to that stuff and staying true to it was really helpful.
In the house while I was asleep, didn't you? The other night.
Did you find something odd? Did you take it and show it to somebody? Did you do that?
Dee? What is it? What's happening?
Sit still, or he'll hear us.
Who will?
He's upstairs. He wants you, Reba.
The intensity of these scenes emotionally is almost operatic.
You're scaring me.
It's so highly pitched that it's a huge challenge to the actors to maintain the intensity over a long day of shooting.
So he couldn't have you. I was wrong. You made me weak, and then you hurt me.
This next sequence with this thing on fire, Ken Pepio was our special effects coordinator, and
yeah, these are real flames.
This is real fire. I mean, I couldn't even walk into this room.
You could only shoot for like 10 seconds at a time?
10 seconds, and then the actor's clothes would start smoking.
And the technicians would have to rush in, fire
and-
extinguishers, and shut everything down. Of course, the flames are they're gas. They're controlled.
They're controlled, but
they're real flame.
It's hot
and real
Let me tell you.
smoke.
Take me with you.
And actually quite dangerous to shoot.
Take you with me.
This
Put out your hand.
was probably
That's a shotgun
the hardest stuff, I think, for the actors in the movie, because especially with the fire, once we get into the fire, I mean...
Sure, and they've got to stay in character.
Stay in character. And,
I mean, it's kind of like the scene with the live tiger. You've got to stay in character while everything's going crazy around you with flames and smoke and technicians and
she's
fire
actually...
marshals.
And she's blind.
And she's blind, so she's not supposed to be able to see the flames.
He lights it, and not only that, she knows there's a gun being pointed at her face. She sees the gun being pointed at her face, which is hard enough.
She feels the heat.
She feels the heat. You know, she has to be in a highly emotional state. And
she can only shoot 10 seconds at a time before they have to clear the set again.
Yeah, and she can't blink.
Right, she can't blink.
When the gunshot goes off, because she can't anticipate it.
Because she wouldn't see it coming. So
if you know that gun's gonna be shot in front of you, you're gonna blink.
So she can't blink, even though she's about to be splattered in the face.
In the face with blood, which is right below the frame line.
Right.
I mean, when she did this, it
unbelievable.
was mind blowing. I think it was one take. I think she did it in one take, and when she did this, and had to scream at such a feverish pitch.
It's incredibly hard to do that.
And you couldn't imagine how hot it was because the fire was 360 degrees, around it.
Right.
We had multiple cameras because we didn't want to shoot, so we had another camera shooting the reverse. I mean, it was. That was a little storytelling thing,
right.
Helping with, just in case you couldn't hear really her lines,
right.
you knew that she was hearing them.
Of course, there goes Grandma. There was a very complicated lighting setup for this. I read actually in a cinematography article where Dante talked about how many different kinds of banks of lights that he had to set up for this one shot right here.
This was a real fire, but we enhanced the CGI.
He's got.
And then this is a real fire.
Right. He's got this fire, but he's got to be able to light the actors with extra instruments that are hidden out of shot. He's got the natural light of the cars, the Mars lights flashing around. Look how many things are happening with light in just this one nighttime shot.
And it's all justified because it's the headlights of the...
It's red, it's blue, it's yellow.
That was such a big explosion. I mean, we had to be like a half a mile away from it. And all these stuntmen were...
And I guess some people are wondering, why is there such a big explosion?
Yeah.
Actually, in the book, Dohraggin has dynamite stored in this house for some unspecified future project.
And you had written a shot where we saw when we looked in the safe.
I had written a shot where we saw the dynamite. Somehow it didn't end up in the movie.
Yeah.
And we finally just decided, well, it's an old house. It's got
oil dynamite and
it's got gas oil tanks in it, and the tanks blow up.
I love this close up of Emily. She's just
what a face.
Whatever part of him.
We really wanted that hair joke to work, so we went crazy on the hair.
You didn't draw a freak.
It's a good scene for Edward, too.
Man with a freak on his back.
I should have known.
Oh, no, sometimes you don't. Trust me.
Initially, this scene was written as a sort of voiceover.
Oh, right.
And actually, it was one of Brett's, Brett is very, very good on text, too, just like Dino and Martha. And Brett said, the audience loves this character, and we have to honor her by having a farewell with her. We have to see her.
Closure.
We have to give her some closure with him. They have to have a real scene together.
If not, the last time we saw her was crying outside of the house.
Yeah, and it was one of the best ideas that Brett had as the script was being revised before we even started shooting.
We found this.
I love the scene that we came up with.
I want to take the first look.
And this helped helped pay off the end.
Yeah, I mean, this is setting up the ending in a way that's not really in the book, I don't think, but we needed for him to have knowledge of Dohraggin that he could only have if he had seen this big journal. So we were back and forth about how could he find this journal if that whole house blew up.
Right.
And finally we thought, well, if we put the journal in the safe, it could conceivably have withstood that explosion.
And we were torn between, do we do a kid's drawing or a picture? And
right.
I love this location. I mean, it's just.
Well, it's so wonderful that they're on the end of a dock and yet they have a fire.
And it says the Keys. I mean, this is definitely not Malibu.
Right.
Born a monster. This guy was made one through years and years of abuse.
Tyler Patrick Jones.
Who found this location, all these locations for you?
Christy went down and scouted them and then brought me down there, and we just.
That's a hard trip. That's hard duty.
Yeah.
To go to the Florida Keys and try to find beautiful places.
Yeah. This whole thing was in the script when I first got the first draft was exactly the way it was in the book, which was took place on an open beach.
Right.
And I said to Ted, Ted, I just feel like I don't know how to shoot suspense on an open beach. I just don't know.
Well, we did change the ending of the book here, and everybody had a contribution. Dino and Martha said, the boy has to be in more jeopardy.
Yeah.
The family, the son has to be in more jeopardy. That's what will really make this work. Brett said it has to be more claustrophobic. Interiors are scarier than exteriors.
Yeah.
We have to have hallways with doors where he could appear from anywhere. Yeah. And then this great, great moment with the mirror, which is pure Brett Ratner. It was not in the screenplay originally. It was Brett's idea that the reveal to this character should be the broken mirror. It was wonderful. So this sequence is an excellent example of how a screenplay evolves from the producers, from the director, and from the writer. And what I wanted, which was not in the original ending of the book, was for Will Graham to be more heroic.
Yeah. And then we added
in the ending of the book, he's injured by Dohraggin on the beach.
The kid actually hooks Dohraggin with a fishing rod.
Graham is injured on the beach and runs away and hides, leaving his family to deal with the bad guy. And I wanted Graham to be more heroic at the end here. So we each had a shopping list for this sequence and got what we wanted. I also wanted Graham to show cleverness here. He can't overwhelm Dohraggin physically, but he can outthink him.
Yeah.
That's what he's good at.
And taking all this, because Ted even said to me, Brett, I don't write action. I don't really do that. And so I said, okay. I sat down with my stunt coordinator, Connie Palmisano, and we went through beat by beat of what could possibly happen physically.
Right.
And then called Ted and kind of went through it with him, and he came up with this whole thing where,
where he stabs him in the leg with he's got a second knife hidden.
But the whole thing about him, using what he saw in the book, which is much more heroic than anything else he could do physically.
Right. I mean, this was where we took quite a leap and tried to use things that the book suggested but didn't actually dramatize.
And it really worked. And Tyler Patrick Jones, who's
a wonderful little boy,
who did an amazing job and went through hours and hours of being thrown to the ground and being yelled at, berated, and very smart and
he's the sweetest little boy.
Yeah, and we should have put a thing at the end where no children were harmed during the making of this picture. But
it's not his first movie.
Yeah, he actually worked with Spielberg on, I think was it Minority Report? Yeah, Minority Report had a small part, but he said he actually liked me more than he did Spielberg, so I was happy about that. He said my beard wasn't as big as Spielberg.
Oh, no. Nor your bank account.
I'm a freak. Say it.
No.
Say it.
Daddy.
Say it or I will cut it off. I'm a dirty little beast.
Rafe did a great job here, and he was nervous about this. Is this going to work, Brett?
Right.
That was his question.
Right.
And I said, let's shoot it and we'll find out.
We won't know until we finish.
Yeah. And Sound Dogs did a great job on the sound design here. They did Family Man with me, and they work.
I just love how you drove this whole sequence. This is just goes like a freight train, this sequence. It's a classic. It's like the end of Psycho or something. Yeah. It's just a great, great suspense sequence. Every shot selection and the pauses.
Mom? Shh. Where are you guys? I thought I heard some kind of... Well?
Great set. I mean, great. And it was modeled after a real house that we found in the Keys, that we saw in the Keys, that had very narrow hallways, these type of doors.
These rattan sort of louvered doors.
Louvered doors.
We needed the doors to be louvered because Molly has to be able to reach through the door here in order to unlock it.
Yeah. I thought Mary Louise was amazing.
She was incredible in this. And she gets to be the final good guy here.
which the whole shooting of the targets set up, you know, that she could hit him point blank in the head right there. Great death. Great. And just her reaction here is...
It's incredible. It just has a sort of the rawness. It just feels real. It doesn't feel like a movie. It feels sort of raw and ugly and awkward.
My dear Will, you must be healed by now.
And the movie really could have ended here, which would have been very bold, where you didn't know if he was dead or alive. It could have ended here, but then we went...
The movie could have ended in 2 or 3 places.
Yeah.
and in the end, we decided it's going to end 3 times.
Yeah. But I think the audience loves this stuff, and they love Chilton. They love... And I think that ending that you came up with was amazing.
I didn't see how you could go out of this movie without letting Hannibal Lecter have the last word.
Absolutely.
He always gets the last word in these movies.
Yeah.
And the problem we were faced with was we couldn't have him get away, as he did at the end of Silence of the Lambs. And we couldn't have him running all over the world like he did in Hannibal.
By the way, but what Danny did was he kind of gave it a Silence of the Lambs ending, where this music here is saying Hannibal won.
Right.
It's not like, oh, they're going to live happily ever after on this boat.
This is, of course, the natural ending of the movie. This is the sort of poetic or cliched final shot of the movie, the boat sailing into the sunset.
But the music is saying Hannibal's won.
But I always wanted there to be one more little beat so it wasn't quite such a tidy ending.
Yeah.
And so that it linked up with silence.
Young woman says she's from the FBI, though she's...
And this, for me, is such an audience pleaser. I mean, it makes me smile every time it comes on, because it's such a great callback. The only mistake I made is the wardrobe is in the same, for him, that it is in Silence. I wish I would have got that same wardrobe. It's the only mistake I made. And this music is just like, this family is going to need a lot of therapy to get over this.
Right. What you don't see after this movie is the years and years of therapy that the whole family goes through. But Danny Elfman is just an amazing composer. And I love how the music really becomes more and more assertive. And by 2/3 of the way through the movie, it really almost feels like it's driving the movie to its conclusion.
Yeah. I just want to give some special thanks to Andy Davis, who
was there from the beginning and through every moment.
Of this movie.
Through all the shooting, through all of the editing.
And James Freitag, my associate producer and assistant director, who without these 2 guys, I don't think I would have been able to make this film, because Andy is not only a great producer, but he is a creative thinker when it comes to line producing a movie and shooting things and organizing and hiring the best people that money can buy as far as crews.
Well, my special thanks would be to Dino and Martha, who set the tone for the entire production and took a little bit of a gamble on Brett, which paid off brilliantly. And also Mark Helfrich, the editor, because the last draft of any screenplay is written in the editing room, and I have not very often been as lucky as I was this time to have an editor who is so sensitive to the script as well as to the performances.
And Landecker and Maslow, my sound mixers, who I thought did an amazing job. I mean, hearing this movie and seeing the movie in New York City for the premiere at the Ziegfeld Theater with that sound mix was just a great experience for me. It's why I dreamed about making movies, is seeing it in a theater like that, in a widescreen format, anamorphic, is like a dream come true for me. It's like that. That's for me a defining moment, is seeing my work. That's the best I will ever see my work.
Yes, with a giant screen,
on
with
a
an
giant
sound
screen
system, with a big audience.
1,600 people. I don't know how many seats, but huge theater with the score and the mix and the quality and the energy, especially with a New York crowd, you know, where they're laughing in all the right places, they're getting scared in all the right places, they're screaming in all the right places.
It was a very exciting project.
Yeah,
it was a good experience. Somehow the darkest subjects sometimes turn out to be the most fun to work on.
Yeah,
if you have the right kind of atmosphere on the set.
And I know you, Ted, and we worked together for about a year, and you're not a dark person. I mean, you do some decadent stuff occasionally.
Well, I don't think either one of us are, but somehow, and maybe that's the only way you can get through making a movie like this, is if it doesn't.
I think a dark director or a dark writer would have maybe gone too far with this movie and made something that was maybe hard for an audience to bear, maybe. Because the scary thing about this stuff is that there really are people out there like this, and there's a lot of, but I wanted to tell a story. I wanted to make a film about a guy who the films I want to make really are about that I enjoy making, because my favorite director is Hal Ashby, and his movies had great relationships. You know, Harold and Maude, and
Right.
being there in those movies. And this movie has fantastic relationships and a tremendous amount of heart and emotion. And even though it's a psychological thriller, the relationships in this film is what is why I'm so attracted to it, and why I felt like I had to make it.
I think it's unexpectedly moving, and for a thriller. It's really not just a kind of scare machine. It actually is a movie about characters and relationships, and it's moving in a surprising way to me.